Sunset in the west, photographed with my Panasonic S1 mirrorless camera. That same photograph from the Pentax K1, and then the S1 Lumix Panasonic camera. Quite different because of the different editing softwares. Which camera is best? We'll find out. So I've been using the Pentax K1 now for many years. I love it. It's one of my favourite cameras, and I love it for the build quality. It's been in all sorts of terrible situations and survived. A few knocks, a few scratches, but especially with the weather sealing and the overall build quality, it's been brilliant and works well to this day. Now, mirrorless cameras are the future, there's no doubt about that. And I recently picked up the S1R, which has pixel shift, takes 8 photographs and creates some 180 something megapixel mammoth files. Very, very good. I sold it and got the S1 instead because I also want to do a lot more video. A lot of clients are requesting that, and the S1 is better for video. 24 megapixels compared to 36 on my K1. I have the kit lens 24 to 105 on the S1 and the 70 to 200 2.8. On the Pentax I have the 28 to 105, which is a smaller lens. Very good image quality for the size. The Pentax K1 is very much a photographer's camera. The sheer range of features and especially the durability. I know the Panasonic S1 series is meant to be particularly durable, but the Pentax has a better grip for me and a more compact, sort of denser body, and therefore the Pentax for me is more of a throw in the bag landscape camera that I'd be happy taking anywhere. The Panasonic is a brilliant camera and apparently weather sealed and frost proof and so on, but it also feels a lot more like a bit of software, a bit of a computer, and therefore I'd be more hesitant to really abuse it compared to the Pentax, which maybe you've seen is quite well used and still going. What we're going to do is just compare the image quality between the two cameras, the 24 megapixels of the modern S1 versus the much older relative Pentax K1 36 megapixel Sony sensor. We're going to use pixel shift for a lot of the files, or high resolution mode as the Panasonic calls it. We're also going to look very briefly at the video, which the Pentax will be trounced. The Pentax video is there, but it's really nothing to write home about. What we're also going to look at is the kit lenses compared to one another. The Pentax lens is bigger, but it's also f4 throughout compared to 3.5 to 5.6 on the Pentax lens. And the Pentax lens is a lot smaller as well, which is great for travel. And it's obviously a lot cheaper. So we're going to have a look at photographs. It's going to be pretty technical, pretty methodical, but we're going to have a look through and hopefully find a definitive answer to which one will provide the best image quality for you. Mirrorless versus the old SLR. I've switched, I've got both, but I'm sort of using the Pentax less and the Panasonic more, just because the Panasonic has a great ease of use and a lot of features that I enjoy. There are a number of features that I miss from the Pentax, because this really is a photographer's camera. A lot of the features in here, for example the magic green button, I use manual mode almost exclusively. When you press this it will instantly dial in the exposure to a spot meter, which is what I tend to use. The Panasonic doesn't have that, but the dials again quick enough to go through. So a lot of features going through both cameras. Both are excellent tools, and we've got to the stage now where the cameras are above and beyond what most photographers need and even want often. That's partly why the sales are declining. Have a look through the images. I'm going to let you download them as raw files so you can decide for yourself, but I'll also share with you my own conclusions. The kit lenses for both cameras are excellent value in the sense that they provide very good image quality for the range. So they're very versatile, and especially with the high ISO capabilities on both cameras, the ability to create images and use higher ISOs is there. What I find is that the Panasonic actually has even better high ISO capability than the already good Pentax, Perhaps that's the fact that it's more modern, but it could also be the 24 megapixel sensor compared to the 36 on the Pentax. The kit lens, very good on each. I find that the 28 to 105 on the Pentax, while compact and small, which is great for travel, is not quite as useful as the 24 to 105 with stabilization of the Panasonic. The Panasonic also provides stabilization in body and with the lens combined to give ability to photograph with shutter speeds that are frankly incredible compared to the Pentax, which has in-body stabilization, had it early, but can't really compete with the Panasonic in that department. There's a few more stops possible with the Panasonic. You notice that it's winter here in England, so we don't have weather, and nobody's decided to paint the sky blue or fill it full of clouds. We have a blanket grey. Now this is actually very good for portrait photography, and not bad also for the lighting for the building, the church behind me, because it's not changing very much and we can compare both cameras without worrying about lighting shifts. Let's go and have a look and photograph with both cameras and see what works. So we're photographing first with our Pentax K1 camera and the 28 to 105 kit lens. We've got this on a Faisal tripod, carbon fibre to dampen vibrations, also lighter to carry. The Pentax has the ability to shift the sensor. We're going to use pixel shift resolution. This shifts the sensor 4 times, combines the photographs for higher resolution, more acuity. It makes a big difference, and the files look incredible. It also reduces noise. Here's the church. Talks about the rector of this parish. It's very cold, and there's not much going on around here. Here's the graveyard, with names through the ages. Here's the steeple, if you can call it that. And now we're on to the Panasonic S1 mirrorless camera with a 24 to 105 kit lens. Also a 13th of a second at f10. f10 for depth of field without creating diffraction. Creating a high resolution image with the Panasonic takes 8 images and takes longer. I'm using the manufacturer's own software, Digital Camera Utility or SilkyPix Developer Studio Pro. I'd recommend something like Lightroom or Capture One Pro if you're editing these files. Here are the photographs from the camera compared. You'll notice that the clarity differs and the colour too. Because they're raw files, you actually have a great deal of ability to change these settings yourself, and of course the lenses will make a difference too. Notice the difference though. There's the churchyard, and there's the Pentax K1. Again with the kit lens used throughout this video, to see what you would get if you just bought both of these cameras with the kit lens. We're using the pixel shift for better image quality so we can compare the cameras more accurately. Here is the Pentax and here's the Panasonic. Using the Panasonic takes longer to make the high resolution pictures, but the camera allows you to shoot immediately after you've taken them. Not so with the Pentax, which takes time to write them to the card. Notice the difference there. This is also lens correction, which is done in camera. But look at the sharpness, and look at the neutrality of the colour. Quite different between these two cameras. The major difference between them is the video mode, apart from the fact that one is an SLR and one is mirrorless. The Pentax has video, but it's terrible. It drops frames, it's soft, and there's no 4K.
We're at the 30th of a second at f5.6, 105mm. That's wide open on the Pentax lens. We're using focus peaking, which the K1 has, but isn't particularly good. There's video from one camera. Notice the shadows, notice the sharpness, and notice the movement. Compare this to the other camera, which is the Panasonic Lumix S1, known for its excellent video, inherited partly from its bigger brother, the S1H. Here's the Panasonic S1 filming with the Deity D3 Pro microphone. Very good value just on the camera. Obviously the sound is not going to be good from this range, but just for a bit of ambience. The S1, built for video with the Vlog upgrade, also has a waveform monitor, very useful for judging exposure.
Both cameras have 2 card slots, that's very useful. I find that sometimes cards do fail, especially the SD cards, and it's worth having that spare just in case, especially for professional work. The K1 has 2 SD card slots, but the Panasonic has an XQD card slot. Now this is more of a modern format, faster, much faster actually in some cases, but very expensive at the moment. That said, I think the reliability on the XQD cards or CF Express, which are also compatible, is higher than the Pentax K1.
Despite all your prayers, sometimes the inevitable tends to happen. In this case, the Panasonic S1 ran out of batteries. These are videos from the camera compared to high-resolution pixel shift photographs from the Pentax K1. The Pentax K1 has smaller batteries, but they last longer, in part because of the very high resolution and beautiful viewfinder in the Panasonic S1. Look at that resolution and colour. You can compare them on the DPReview website and note that the Panasonic S1 doesn't compare too favourably to the Pentax K1. The S1R with the 47 megapixel sensor shifted to 187 megapixels is obviously a higher resolution camera and perhaps better than the Pentax. But the Pentax K1 is really a photographer's camera and is still an incredible value proposition to this day. If you're only seeking to do photography, I'd recommend the Pentax K1. Otherwise, the Panasonic S1 is an excellent hybrid camera.
As I said at the beginning, I've included the original raw photographs from both cameras for you to download and convert at your leisure. Please just use them for your own enjoyment and pixel peeping. The converter software will have an impact, so whether you're using Raw Therapy or Capture One Pro or Lightroom or whatever it happens to be, that will create slightly different results. So I hope you've enjoyed that video of the beautiful English church behind me, comparing the 2 cameras, the Panasonic S1 and the Pentax K1. There are a lot of these churches scattered around the country, built for about 1,000 years now, on and off. This one is younger than that, but still jolly old, and a lot of them are now closing for the dearth of congregation, not just because we're all masked and locked down, but equally because people are perhaps less religious than they used to be. The church itself is a good subject, doesn't move, which is always good for a pixel shift, especially with the Pentax, because the software is older and the implementation means that any sort of movement in the frame, even the gentle rippling of water, for example, or the moving of clouds, shows up quite evidently in the artifacts that are presented. Panasonic, the software is more modern and the artifacts are much better regulated and removed from the images. So what I've personally found is that the Pentax K1 with a 36 megapixel sensor and the 4-stage pixel shift does create these really beautiful files. The Panasonic with the 8 images creates obviously larger, I think it's 96 megapixel files, so they'll print larger. So I hope you enjoy the video, you enjoyed looking through the photographs and deciding for yourself whether the mirrorless options are there yet or whether it's worth waiting for the next iteration.
Panasonic has got a great history with video cameras, for example the GH5, the GH5S, and the G9 as well. It's a lovely camera. They're micro four thirds, moving up to a full frame sensor with the S1. They really went all out to create a very good product, and they've done so. It is an excellent hybrid camera. The video on the S1 is far better than the Pentax, which has terrible video, and I hope that you can decide based on this whether it's worth upgrading yet or whether you'd like to wait to see what happens next. There's always new cameras being released. Either of these will do a superlative job. The most important thing, especially during this lockdown globally, is to get out and shoot and enjoy the process of doing so.